Would you believe we are 1/3 through the 2022 Canadian Football League season? Forgive the somewhat shaky Don Adams impression. I've been watching some of his videos last night, but in all seriousness, we are 1/3 through the CFL season. It's been pretty interesting. It started strangely. It started with a game between the I almost say Canadians, the Stampeders and the Alouettes on June 9th. The defending back-to-back champions didn't play until a day later. And strangely enough, for this Argos fan, the Argos didn't play in opening week. Yet we were in first place after week 1 because Montreal, Ottawa, and Hamilton all lost. I should have known right there what the tone was for the East Division that week. There wouldn't be one. The East has been I've watched Canadian football since 2013. Yeah, I remember that year because it was right before that season started. I promised myself, I'm going to start watching Canadian football. I have been for what? This is actually my 10th year, or really it's the 9th season because there was no 2020 season because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The early stages in 2020, but Toronto's season opener was June 16th on week 2. For this hockey fan, it was a day after the Stanley Cup Final started, and the Avs won game 1. But we barely squeaked out a victory over the Alouettes. But yeah, it's been quite a crazy season. Of course, week after that we got blown out by the Lions. Ugh. But it's been very interesting. But yeah, this season has shown me what I've always known. The West is much better than the East. West Division games are just amazing. They're close, and in some cases they can be kind of high scoring. The East can be close, but not as high scoring. No. Pardon. No, there was the meeting. There was the last meeting between the Red Blacks, the Montreal Alouettes. This was week 7. That was pretty high scored, 40-33 in favor of Montreal. Overall, the West has lost only 3 games to the East, but all those losses belong to the Rough Riders. Isn't that something? The Rough Riders lost both games to Toronto, but before that they lost to the Alouettes. So it's just been wild. And then there's the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Blue Bombers, I've seen this quite a bit. It is amazing that a team can be better than they were when they won the championship. And this is clearly the case of the Blue Bombers. They are undefeated after 1/3 of the season's over. 7 weeks. It's a 21-week regular season. It's a 21-week regular season, but it's 18-game season. That's right. It's back to a full season. Remember, last year was it 14? Last year was a slightly shortened 14-game season, 16 weeks, and it started a bit later than usual. But yeah, it's back to a full season, the full 18-game season, and playoffs in November. Of course, last year the playoffs were in late November, and the Grey Cup was in December 12th, to be exact. But yeah, it's very interesting. It's been a pretty thrilling season. I've watched as much as possible, and of course, always earlier in the year, the ESPN networks, the TV networks, air some of the games. ESPN2 and ESPN News. Of course, the restaurant ESPN Plus here in the U.S. But here's how things look with the season 1/3 through. In the West, like I said, Winnipeg 7-0. I actually did my homework about a few days ago when I wrote my story about Week 7. There have been no perfect teams in the CFL's history which is over 100 years. Actually, it's reaching. I think it's supposed to be about 110. Though this year is the 109th Grey Cup. It would have been the 110th, but again, there was no 2020 season. But this year will be the 109th Grey Cup. So even so, it's over a century. No perfect teams. There's no Canadian equivalent of the 72 Miami Dolphins, who, as I always say, invented run the table. Remember, Aaron Rodgers only said it in 2016, but the real run the table team in the NFL, of course, was the 72 Dolphins. But there's only been one fully undefeated season in the CFL. That was the 1948 Calgary Stampeders. Yes, I looked that up. The Stampeders had an unbeaten regular season, which at the time was 12 games. And in the playoffs, they actually tied the first game, but won the next two to win their first Grey Cup championship. This was 1948. So, almost 75 years later, 3/4 of a century later, no team has really gone unbeaten like this. And of course, there's no perfect season. Remember, a perfect season is undefeated and untied. There was that one tie in the playoff game for the Stampeders. But yeah, so Winnipeg, could they do it? They're good enough to. They're definitely good enough to. 7-0, 180 overall points, which surprisingly does not lead the league. The Rough Riders lead the league in scoring barely. They have 183 this whole season. They have a point differential of plus 66, which I think, no, that doesn't lead the league either. That doesn't lead the league either. The highest point differential in the league is plus 72. That belongs to BC. They have that 44-3. They won a couple games this year by 40 points. That's definitely going to do it. But but yeah, BC's plus 72 this season so far, and that's in 5 games. That's the frightening part, because BC's had a couple weeks off, of weeks off. So has Calgary. But yeah, Calgary and BC are tied at 4-1. But Calgary has the tiebreaker to have a better division record. Plus, I think they've beaten BC. But was that BC? No, was that BC's one loss? I can go back. No, BC's one loss was against Winnipeg. It's just division record keeping them ahead. I'm looking at that week 5 scores. I remember that. I think I kind of stopped watching after a while because Calgary was just beat the dog shit out of the Elks, 49-6. Yikes! But yeah. So Saskatchewan's 4-3. All 3 losses are against the East, and Edmonton is 2-5. They are bringing up the rear in that West Division again, but they are 2 games behind Saskatchewan this early in the season. So if Edmonton could piece a few wins together, who knows? Because for the looks of it, there's going to be a crossover team this year. A 4th team in the West Division is going to make it. Remember, in the playoff format is top three teams in each division make it. But if the 4th place team in one division has a better record than the 3rd place team in the other, that team jumps over, and that's the only time that happens. But it definitely looks like a crossover is going to happen because as we go to the East Division, it's horrible. Toronto is 3-2. That leads the division. Yeah. Toronto's in first place at 3-2. The Toronto Argonauts are. The Montreal Alouettes are close, well, not that close, but close behind at 2-4. Hamilton Tiger Cats, who reached the Grey Cup back-to-back years, still have not won. They're 1-5, and Ottawa's looking for their first win. They're winless in 6 games, but they are 2 games out of playoff position. Isn't that something? So if Ottawa this means that Ottawa doesn't have to go on a big winning streak. If they win, like, let's say the next let's say the second period of weeks 8 through 14. If they go like 3-4, they could possibly be in first place. That is how messed up this division is. It reminds me of how bad the NFC East has been in recent years in the NFL, though I think that's going to get a little bit better. But yeah, the CFL's East Division is just not good. Toronto's in first place, but we have a point differential of -25. That is just bad, though. It's definitely not the lowest. The lowest point differential, sadly, is Edmonton at -103. 13. Oh boy. The Montreal Alouettes, they're the only team in the East with a positive point differential. It's +5. They're also the highest scoring team in the East, 174 points, but they give up a lot. They give up 169 points in 6 games. That's not going to do it. So, if they want any chance in that East Division, the defense has to improve. I mean, improve. Which is the opposite in Toronto's case. If we want a chance to stay on top, the offense needs to improve. We are not scoring a lot of points. But that's the story so far after the first 7 weeks. And week 8 begins today. Week 8 begins today. With it's an interesting schedule. There's 2 East games, 2 West games. It's Edmonton who's off this week. Hamilton faces Montreal today. Tomorrow it's the Riders hosting the Lions. Saturday it's the Stampeders hosting the Blue Bombers, and on Sunday it's a Battle of Ontario. Argos hosting the Red Blacks. That should be that could be interesting, especially for Ottawa. But yeah, couple key games. I think this should be our first crack at Hamilton. I have to go back. Week 9 should be. But yeah, it will be. It will be week 9. Saturday, August 6th is our first meeting against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. It's always big when those two face each other. That's our main rival overall. But it's always big when those two teams get together. It's back-to-back meetings in weeks 9 and 10. And I think this second period does involve the second period of games does involve Labor Day. Labor Day falls on week 13. Of course, last year with the shortened season, it was early in the year, but Labor Day does fall on week 13, which is around the end of the second period of the season, which is between weeks 8 and 14. And of course, it's always the division rivalries. In this case, it's always the division rivalries. Of course, Montreal Alouettes hosting the Ottawa Red Blacks. That's September 2nd. Saskatchewan Rough Riders hosting the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. That's September 4th. And Labor Day Monday, of course, you have to put the U in it for Canadians. The Tiger Cats hosted the Argonauts, and the Battle of Alberta. The Stampeders hosted the Elks. That's on Labor Day, September 5th. That's week 13. So, that's my recap of the first 7 weeks of the CFL season. If you like this story, click the like button, click subscribe if you want more. My first 7 recaps will be in the description below. So check them all out when you can. The next time I'll talk CFL will be after the last game ends, so probably around September. Well, the last game of week 14 is September 10th. I'll probably be back to discuss the second period, either that night or a day later. September's gonna be busy because September will be entering the final 7 weeks. The NFL is gonna start, and September's a pivotal month in baseball, so I'll be reporting week by week on that. So that's why I'm going to be doing for YouTube on September. So again, check out the stories description below, and I'll be back on September 1st actually to discuss what's the story, what stands like in baseball entering that final month. So stay tuned.